In this video I'm going to learn how lists work in Python beginning edition. Python lists are a data type just like integers or strings, and they are a fundamental tool for organizing large sets of data and manipulate them, making them an essential part of any Python programmer's toolkit. In this video more specifically I'll cover what are lists or arrays, creating lists, accessing the elements of the list, modifying the elements, adding and removing those items, those elements from the lists, and looping through the lists and make conditions and make something inside of every item of the list. Another thing I want to add before starting the video is that everything here in this list is important, so just don't go skipping. You can skip a little bit, but make sure to come back because everything here is important to understand. With that in mind, let's get started. Firstly, I'm going to come here to my Jupyter Online because I'm poor, I couldn't install it and I didn't want to have much trouble with it. Let's try to create a list. A list would be something like called my list. This is the name of a variable. It's something like coming here and say my name is Diogo. You can do that, but this way it's not a list, it's not an array. But if you come here and put an integer, it's still not a list, because Python is a dynamic programming language and you don't really need to specify the type of data. You can set here this for 1, 2, 3 and print my list as an example, right? Or you can even come here, my list is going to be equals to an array in which you need to put there the square brackets, open and close them, and put values inside. However, you can simply put them like this. You either put only one value, which doesn't make really much sense, or you can put them separated by commas. In this way you have 3 different elements in your list. Let's try it out. Let's print it, my list. And as you could see, we've printed the list of 2, 3 and 4. And this, guys, is a list. Of course, you could also do the same thing but with no values, because empty lists are really common. You can create an empty list just to start as empty and to make validations. It's really good to start with an empty list if you don't want any values inside it in the beginning of the program. There are different properties of a list in Python, however I'm only going to cover the most essential ones. You can have my list, and you're going to specify it a value. You're going to put here value 1, value 2 and value 3. Always the commas between elements, and another thing, always make sure to use meaningful names, because if you don't use meaningful names, you're going to lose the track of what you are doing. So in this is just example, value 1, value 2 and value 3 also don't make much sense, but the values inside the list should also coincide with the name, should also be related somehow to the list name. And then what you can do here is send it like this, or you could even put the values the same. No errors, I'm going to print it out, my list, because there are types of arrays. They have another names in Python that cannot have the same name. But since lists have indexes, as an example, if you come here and use the length of a my list, you are going to see that it has a length, 3 items. But I'm going to cover these indexes a little bit later in this video. Another thing you can also do is, since Python it's a dynamic programming language, you can have value 1, whatever you want, and you can also have here just a character as an example. And yes, you can have multiple different data types inside one same array. It's pretty common to happen. Another thing about creating lists, it's creating lists inside of lists. Let's check it out. My list is equals to items. That's going to be equals to the banana, apple, meat. And if you print the my list, you're going to receive an invalid syntax. I was almost writing JSON. This is the wrong syntax, of course, guys. You need to put here a comma and not what I put, I don't know why. And there you go. You have a list with 2 items, the items, and another list with 3 items inside. If you use Python's function called len, we can know the length of the list. And if you put here the list, we are going to receive 2. But why we receive 2? We have so much things inside. But this only counts as another item, because this is a list, but the list it's only one item. What's inside the list, it doesn't concern us. It's just like the string. String it's multiple characters. However, it is only one item. But there's also another way of accessing this stuff inside the list, the elements. The first thing that I want to tell you guys is that the first index of a list, my list, it's not actually the 1 but a 0, because if I put 1 between the square brackets as we just used to create, but now we are just accessing them, print it and send it, we are going to receive the banana, the apple and the meat. So as you could see in this practical example, 1 is the second. If we do the same thing but for the 0, we are going to receive the items value. But now, we can also use these inside another things. As an example, we can print the length of the MyList. However, instead of the items, we can receive the second item of the list, which is in the index of 1, which is another list. And we can determine the length of this list of 3 items, which is going to return 3. Of course, right? However, there are multiple ways of accessing a single or multiple elements of a list. We are going to create here a list, which is going to be equals to choco, and we are going to just copy it and put more chocos, okay? I hope you don't mind. And choco 2, 3, 4, and 5. With this, we created here a list of chocos. And if you want to select or to print, and then after it select my list, we can, instead of only putting a number, we can put a reverse. We are going to start from behind. We are going to start backwards. And this is going to return the choco 5. If you want to return the choco 4, you can put -2. But yes, you can also do with intervals. The only thing you need to do is put in here column. You can put here the first item that you want to show. So we are going to start from the choco 2. So 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I want to get the choco 2, the 3 and the 4, I need to put here the index of the choco 5, because the last index it's not ever going to get. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to put here 4. And we are going to receive the choco 2, choco 3 and choco 4. Let's check it out. There we go. The 1, 2 and 3. The 4, the last one, never counts. You can also omit one of the values. You can put it like this. Don't put the last item so we receive everything from the 1 onwards. Or we can just put the opposite. We want to receive everything up to the 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. You only receive up to the choco 3. You can also make these with the reverse. However, the reverse is a little bit complex when you are managing intervals. You need to put here the first is going to be the smaller or the bigger, and only then the smaller. So -1, 2 and 3 from here to -1. So we are going to get the choco 3 and 4, I believe. Let's check it out. Exactly. It's a little bit complex. Try to avoid using these intervals using reverse. Print and receive the value of specific item by using here this accessing method. We put here the index. It's not the only thing we can do. You can also change the value that's in this specific position. 0, 1, 2, choco 3, right? We are going to make the choco 3 into chocolate. And if you print my list, you are going to receive the chocolate with L big and all that we just updated with the accessing method. However, we can do the same with the reverse or even with intervals. However, I'm only going to show you the intervals because the reverse is just the same thing. But the interval has a really special property. Imagine that you want to put here my list and put the 1, 2, 3. So we are going to receive the choco 2 and chocolate. Choco 2 and chocolate. If we say that this is going to be equals to a list, because if we put the square brackets, you can put the two values at the same time, and you can say meat and eggs. If we print this up, we are going to receive that those two got updated at the same time. However, of course, if you omit one of them, in this case, if you come here and don't put the eggs, what's going to happen is the meat will occupy both meat and eggs. So we are going to remove the eggs. Let's check it out. There we go. The eggs got removed and the length, the total length of the array decreased. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. The length decreased because we removed one. And if you also put more parameters than those you are changing, you are also going to add them. But don't use this way to add and remove stuff, because this is a really nice way of adding elements and removing them from a list with specific functions of Python, inbuilt functions that are pretty easy to use. Let's check them. We are going to run this again, so we reset our list, and we are going to try to append a new value. To append a new value, to add at the last position, we are going to just put mylist dot, which is a connotation that we use to call functions related to specific objects. In this case, a list is an object, sort of, and we have functions associated. So we just need to call the function by this, append, and inside parentheses, we are going to put the parameter, which is going to be the value of the new item. And if you put here the chocolate and print my list, you can see that we appended the chocolate. However, keep in mind that you only add one at a time with this function. Don't try putting more, it doesn't work like that. If you are a little bit more advanced and know the index where you want to add something, you can also use the insert function. My list dot insert, just the same way of the append, dot and the function, parentheses, and inside you're going to put the argument, which is going to be the index. So we are going to change this choco3 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, right? So 2. You can also put here something called index variable. The user can select this dynamically. However, we are just going to put 2 because we don't have user here. And we are also going to put the value, the new value. So choco 0, 1, 2. So what we are going to do here is making the choco 3 go to the next position and push everyone onwards, forward, to make them get out of the way. They are not going to be deleted. They are just going to move a little bit so I can enter. And the one that's going to enter, it's the blah blah blah. It's those items. Now print my list, and there you go. You can see that you have 2 strings, more strings here, and you have these numbers really nice that we just added. Nothing got deleted, but pushed to the right, so the length increased. There's also another ways of adding items to a list, which is using the extend. And the extend doesn't really add items, but put items from another list to another list. So I'm going to create here my list is going to be equals to pen, and then you're going to have the your list, which is going to be equals to apple. And then if you use the my list, which is the main one, the principal one, dot extend, the exact same thing. Extend is a function for arrays. You put parentheses and then you put the other list. So your list, it's the only one that was not mentioned here. And in this way we are going to print it up as well, the my list. Apple, no, it's pineapple in this case. It's pineapple. Well, it's all fun and jokes until you start removing the apple and start hinting the pen. I will show you guys. If you use the mylist dot remove, which is a function for a list as well with a dot connotation, you put here the parentheses and specify the value of the element that you want to delete. Of course, always have to keep in mind that if such value does not exist, it will give an error. But let's try with the value that we know that it exists. We are going to remove the apple and boom, it happened, right? Print my list, pen. If we put the same thing again, we don't have apple anymore, just a pen, give an error. A callback, which is, well, X was not in the list. You will always need to validate these. So if you want to understand how to make that validations, how to stop the user from breaking your program, watch until the end and I will cover everything that you need to validate, how to validate, and how easy to validate it is. There's another way of removing elements from a list. You're going to remove everything up again, reload, and then you are going to have the pen, apple, and the pen. Alright? Then you can use the mylist dot and call a function called pop. This function, if you don't put anything inside the parentheses, so no parameters, it will simply remove the last one, the last item, and the pen got removed. However, if you specify the index that you want to delete, so 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, let's remove the 1, the pineapple, removed. However, if you try to remove something that does not exist, as an example the 2, another thing that you need to pay attention to, if you are going to delete specific indexes, you need to always make sure that that index exists, because if it doesn't, well, it will break your program. There is also the del keyword in Python that you can use to either delete the whole list or a specific index. However, I do not really recommend using the delete, only for the index and only in certain specific cases. In the case that you really want to delete a list, it's way better to come here and use the function clear, and this way you are going to turn the mylist to something empty. That in the other case, if you delete it by some reason and try to access it again, it will give an error. If you print, if you make some conditions with it, it will give an error because it stops existing. The del keyword makes the list disappear and you try to print it and it'll give an error because it's not defined. It doesn't exist, it got deleted. Finally, we are going to try to loop through a list. Well, the first thing that you need to do as looping lists, and the most common one, is using the for. The for loop, which is present in multiple programming languages, in this case it's more used like a for each. You can specify the item that's going to be called in my list. What's this? Every element, every item of this list is going to be called X. X if I put X, but in this case it's going to be called item. X is the most default one. And we are going to be able to use this item in every loop. We are going to use it when it's in the pen, when it's in the pineapple, when it's in the apple, when it's in the pen, Apple pen, we are going to use it every time we find an element and with that specific element. I am going to show you guys. You can print item, and if you enter, you are going to print every single individual item. You can also use this to add something. As an example, make them in uppercase or make them in blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that this is going to loop these 4 items, and the item is going to be every single element, every single item in every single loop. You can also use it in the math way. You can use the for instead of item I in range. We are going to use the range to make it go through the 0, 1, 2, 3 of the array of the list. Then you can put the length of the list, which is going to be my list, and inside of here, instead of actually printing the I or the X or the item, we are going to print the my list and access it in the present index, which is going to give the exact same thing. And yet another thing that's even more usual for other programming languages is setting the I to 0, giving it a value of 0. Then using the while, we can come here and say that the I is going to run through everything while the I is smaller than the length of the my list. Then you can also say that you are going to print the my list in the current array. Another thing that you need to do now is saying that I is going to be plus equals 1. You don't need to print. The print is simply an operation, an instruction, just to show you guys that you can input any instruction you want. But yes, the I plus equals to 1 is going to be something like I++ in other programming languages. It's just to increment itself so it gets one time in the loop and gets through the whole list, and it gives the exact same output. And now just a little shout out for the next video, which are going to start from the list comprehension and more advanced stuff in Python. I'm going to loop through a list, but with the list comprehension. So the list comprehension is usually to create a copy of an array with specific conditions. And this, what I'm going to write here, is going to return a value. However, you can, as an example, print x for x in my list. This is like a shortcut. This is basically the syntax of list comprehension. And you usually would create here the new list and put equals instead of actually doing this. But yes, you can simply print x for x in my list, enter it, and it will do the same thing. Of course, this is the return. The return is going to return none, 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 because, well, we didn't store it in anywhere. Now guys, to learn more about the validations you need to do for each individual stuff in Python, for each item, and if you want to learn how you can create list comprehensions, how to sort and reverse an array, how to copy arrays from one another, and more things about Python, watch my next video about Python Advanced Edition. So for this video, it's everything. I hope you all understood everything. If you didn't, you can always leave a comment and I will help you out. And I'm Diogo Veigas and I'll see you in the next video.